Hello, hello, hello. Today we'll be continuing our playthrough of Yearning for Spring for the 2020 Winter V engine. She attempts to open the door, but it's like the door is sealed shut. She shoves it with all her weight and strength and it barely budges an inch. Snow was packed heavily against the door, and the wind howled to be let in. Bee, realizing her mistake, gripped the door handle and pulled it shut again. Sliding down to the ground, she cursed the blizzard. Just that quick second of the door being open was enough to suck what felt like all the warm air from the cabin interior. Bee shivered and popped back up to her feet. She continued to pace. There had to be something to do. We need supplies. We need food. Bee's pacing began to gradually increase in speed, wringing her hands as she paced. Anything to keep her hands busy. We need heat. We need a plan. The strange wicker basket caught her eye, filling her head with questions again. She points an accusing finger at the basket. And this? How did this even get here? Where the heck are we? Maybe you missed. Seriously, this cabin gives me the creeps. Why couldn't I just listen to my own logic? Why couldn't I just sit at the picnic area like a normal person? Um, a helpless ragged groan escapes her throat. In a fit of hopelessness she tosses the basket to the floor, as if it was the representation of all her misfortune. We need to get out of here. She whispered hoarsely as she sunk to the ground. Sobs racked her shoulders and as she began to softly cry. She felt like a petulant child, trapped, useless, unhelpful, and pitiful. This wasn't supposed to be how her vacation went. This wasn't supposed to be how any of this went. And as cool and unbothered and prepared as she wanted to be, she wasn't. She was scared. Camellia kneels softly at her side and takes Bee's hand in hers. She clasps the hands tightly, reassuringly. You can leave this cabin as soon as it is safe. For now, however, we have everything we need. Without warning, she lets go and takes Bee's pinky in hers. Pinky promise. Bee looks up into Camelia's eyes. Her usually cold blue eyes seem to fill Bee with warmth. Tears still streaming down her cheeks, Bee smirks and sniffles. The promise has been sealed? Camellia smiles softly back and nods. The promise has been sealed. Now, how about some tea? There's tea? I think I saw some in the cupboard. Camellia takes Bee's hand more firmly again and helps her to her feet. Together, Camellia and Bee sat on the small sofa and slipped the mystery tea they found in the cabinet. Bee holds her mug close and blows on the hot tea before taking a hesitant sip. The tea had a faint floral smell and smooth tannins. The flavor was somewhere between jasmine and chamomile. She took a bigger sip. The tea was comforting. For a brief moment, she was back at her tiny city apartment wrapped in a blanket, decompressing after work. Bee opened her eyes again, allowing herself a quick moment of hope that this was all just a bad dream, but found the same old cabin. Is the tea good? Bee jumped a little at the sound of Camelia's voice. She was so caught up in her thoughts she had completely forgotten about Camellia seated next to her. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I startle you? If you wish not to talk, I'll be silent. No, I was just thinking. The tea is really good. Camellia felt her pride swell and she smiled triumphantly inwardly. Bee sipped her tea again. Do you know what kind of tea this is? My own blend. Hmm, you have good taste. Bee couldn't think clearly, or perhaps she had just heard wrong. The contradiction of this cabin being abandoned, yet Camellia also having intimate knowledge of this tea was strangely not computing with Bee. Her vision had begun to come and go. She could feel her consciousness slipping. She could feel her head lull to the side and rest on Camelia's shoulder. Bee felt Camellia jump a little, but her cool shoulder was sobering to Bee's suddenly hot face. Are you okay? Mm. Concern crossed Camelia's face. I'll add wood to the fire? She leaned forward to get up, but Bee placed a hand on her arm. Hey, could we stay like this for a little while? Camellia wordlessly nodded and settled back into her seat next to Bee. She could feel Bee's heat slowly creep into her body. This is the closest she's ever felt to being hot. It was not long before Bee's soft breathing evened out. Camellia carefully moved Bee's mug to the floor before moving Bee's hand from her shoulder to the couch cushion and getting up. Oh, a new CG. I like the textures on the walls and everywhere, even in her hair and the fabric. She walked briskly to the coldest corner in the cabin and sat down hugging her legs. Silence overtook the room. The crackling of the fire had quieted. Even the howling wind was no more. The light of the moon streamed into the room and illuminated Bee's sleeping body perfectly. The light of the moon streamed in. The pure silence was deafening. Camellia was alone with her thoughts again. She dug her nails into her arms and tried to steady her breath, but it wasn't enough. She had cooled herself off, but it wasn't enough to erase the feelings. She looked so sad in the portrait. In the CG, the heat she felt in her chest made her breath ragged. Her feet moved her, pacing. Pacing, 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 pacing. She sits next to the dying embers, feeding it another log, hoping that the heat felt by the fire was enough to sedate her longing. But it was a futile effort, and she knew it. She knew what she craved. The warmth, the gentle heat of another body, of Bee. But she also loathed it. As much as she wanted it, she also wanted to consume it, destroy it, smother it. Bee was like sunshine, something she's always naturally craved and viscerally feared. And now that Camellia has experienced Bee's sunlight, she's been drawn to it. She craves it every time she sees her. Every moment near Bee, she wants to touch her. The soft fingertips that trace her body, and the heat trails left on her skin like paint, a beautiful portrait of what spring could be like. How badly she wanted to see that spring. But she will never see spring. Instead, she will be stuck here, trapped between worlds, lost among a land that is both hers and not. She does not exist, but neither does she cease to be, all at the same time, instinctively aware of the happenings of the world while not being present to experience them. Is this what sleep feels like? How many winters has this been now? She could feel herself moving again. Where is she going? She was barely still aware she was here. Her days were already in the negative. She became aware of Bee's figure in her visions again. She stood over her body. Her shadow, cast by the moonlight, passed over Bee's face. She felt her body kneel as her hands reached out. Her instincts were screaming, "Consume the warmth." But her heart wanted to stop. It wasn't what she wanted. Camellia reached out her hands, placing one on Bee's shoulder and one on her forehead. Her teeth are unnerving. "Please," her heart begged her instincts, "please don't." Camellia reached out her hands, placing one on Bee's shoulder and the other on her forehead. The heat surged back into her fingertips. Her mind was drunk with pleasure. She leaned forward, her fangs poised. Bee turned, groggily smiling through bleary eyes. "How forward?" Bee reached out with a limp hand and pulled Camellia in close. "I thought you'd never ask." Camellia closed her eyes. Bee's hot breath on her face made her chest feel tight. What was this feeling? "Oh, hi, Chase Cubed! Ah, you got it!" "Yeah, I was able to get the stream to work today. So I got to continue playing today. Yay!" I like the music building up here. Their lips touched softly and lingered for a moment. Bee began to pull back hesitantly, but Camellia kissed her again. Their lips met again, but with more urgency. Camellia let Bee lead, as she bit her lip, and they parted for her. Bee's hands interlaced hers and pulled her gently. Camellia froze. She pulled away and retreated from Bee, covering her mouth. "I'm sorry, was that too much?" Bee rubbed her eyes as she sat up. Camellia tried to turn away from her, but it was already too late. In the dim light of the moon, Bee could see her glowing red eyes and fangs glistening. "Camellia, what? I wished you not to see this version of me." "Camellia, wait. I must go." Camellia leans forward to get her feet underneath her, and Bee catches her hand. Camelia's downcast face could not meet Bee's pleading eyes. Camellia pulls on her arm gently, but Bee's grip won't give. "Let me go. It's already too late. Please, talk to me. I'm a monster. I've known this for a long time. I don't see you as one." Camellia let her arm go limp, her face still turned away. Her emotions pulled her to run, but also to embrace Bee's open invitation. "Camellia, just talk to me about whoever you are. Who you are." "Camellia, I could tell you were different from the beginning. I felt it. I could just barely puzzle out and make excuses for certain actions. So you knew and felt it, but stayed anyways?" Bee reached out hesitantly and softly turned Camelia's face up to meet her gaze. Crystalline tears edged her eyes. They sparkled like new fallen snow, but she was smiling. Bee's heart jumped and tears stung her eyes. Camelia's hand reached up and brushed away a tear on Bee's cheek. "Thank you." Bee, sniffling, could only smile and nod, then pulls Camellia back towards the couch. They sit together, holding hands and exchanging explanations of Bee's skepticism. It wasn't long before Bee was back to sleep, her head on Camelia's lap, while Camellia ran her hands through Bee's hair. It's morning now. The sound of birds chirping woke up Bee. Warm beams of sunlight bathed her in its glow. She opened her eyes, and for a brief, panicked moment she could not find Camellia. Bee popped up from the couch and found Camellia leaning against the sink, looking in her direction. "Morning." She said it so quietly. Bee returned the greeting and asked if she had slept. "I do not." Bee blinked and Camellia attempted a small chuckle, which in turn made Bee laugh. The tension that was slowly building broke and Bee smiled. "What do you have for us today?" Camellia softly glided over to Bee, pecked her on the cheek, then twirled over to the hutch where her wicker basket was before. "We have similar items to yesterday, but no apples. Nectarines." She skips back over to Bee and gives her another peck on the cheek. Her eyes, her cheek, her cheek was much warmer this time. Camellia places the items on the table, then notices Bee smiling. Camellia suddenly feels very self-conscious. "You're awfully cute when you're happy." Bee smiled and blushed even deeper. Again, those loose lips of hers letting thoughts tumble right out. But the embarrassment was worth it for Camelia's smile. Camellia played with a lock of her hair as she laid the ingredients out on the table. "You're going to love the city. There's so much to see." Camellia froze, but Bee continued on dreamily. "The lights sparkle like the stars and the cocoa is magnificent. Not to mention my mum's baked treats will have you dancing like this all the time. And now that the blizzard has stopped, we can go." Bee finally stumbled back to reality. Did I say something wrong?" No. Are you okay?" Bee touched Camelia's hand gently and gave it a squeeze. "Let's get breakfast going." Bee gathered up a couple items from the table, but Camellia stopped her. I am so sorry, Bee." "Sorry? Sorry for what?" "I cannot leave here." Bee's mind raced, running through question after question. "What do you mean?" "I cannot leave this place, this domain, this forest, ever. Surely there's a way." "Oh, hi Axel Wild, thank you for the follow." That was, the soundbite was from Jeeves and Wooster. "Whatto, whatto, whatto." Just Axel is fine? Thank you, Axel. Ever. Please, let us get some food, then we can talk. Together, with mild tension, they cooked a simple meal of eggs, bacon, toast, and sliced fruit. They sat in silence for a time while Bee looked out the sunny window, her mind full of questions. Bee took a deep breath and turned back to the piece of toast that she'd been holding. "I'm a monster." "Oh, Wolfborg, your message got auto-blocked." "Oh, it might be if it has a link. I have links turned off, because of, in case of, spamming from bots. Sorry about that." Oh wait, I can permit it. There we go. Yay! Whatto, whatto, whatto. Camelia's sudden statement brought Bee's attention back to the present. "No, Camellia." Camellia raised her hand to stop Bee. "I am different from you. I know this. You saw me last night. I don't know how to apologize enough." Bee chewed her lip, but remained silent as Camellia continued. "I am unsure when I first came to Bee. It has been many winters since I woke up here." She motioned around the cabin. "I had no directions, but an impulse to protect this land. I feel a connection to it, and I can sense everything that's here. Each tree, each creature, the snow, ice, rocks, it's like a web connected to the ends of my nerves. My only company all these years has been the sprites and spirits that inhabit the land." Bee's brain can only process so much information at once. She's always had the suspicion that there was some basis for supernatural beings to exist, but the confirmation was making her head spin. I'm sure I saw glimpses of the little fire sprite that helped me out yesterday. Bee nodded slightly, remembering what she thought was a glare, too bright for her to make out any details, but out of place in a coolly lit cabin. There was a long stretch of silence as Bee chewed on a bite of her toast, and Camellia sat statuesque, her food untouched. Why can't you leave? Bee finally pushed the question out that had been swirling around in her mind. The question wouldn't let her think about anything else. She and Camellia had bonded. There was a connection, and yet Camellia still would not leave this prison with her. This is a cage, isn't it? I don't want you to have to live your life in a cell. Bee's voice cracked as she spoke. Shock painted Camelia's face. She'd never thought of this place as a prison, but it was always just how it was. She longed for another existence outside of it, but accepted it could never be the case. I am not chained here, I just cannot. Bee stood suddenly and put a hand over her chest. I want you to be unchained. I want you to see the world. And I want to be by your side. Camellia looked up at Bee with a sad smile. Cold tears stung her eyes. In another world, perhaps I could go. Bee stepped towards and kneeled next to Camellia. I want to show you the whole world, whether it's in this world or the next. Bee unhooks her mother's necklace and places it in Camelia's hands. No, Bee. Bee shakes her head. I want you to keep this, so you know that my promise is unbreakable. Camellia holds the necklace to her hollow chest, then holds out her pinky to Bee, who takes it immediately. They smile. But the moment of happiness was fleeting. The ground began to shake. Bee lost her balance while kneeling and fell to her bottom. Camellia stood with a frightened look on her face. No. What's happening? The shaking grew more intense, and Camellia looked to Bee with tears in her eyes. It's the end of winter. Her normally steady voice shook. I've resisted the natural order of things for long enough. The land is angry. Bee climbed to her feet and rushed to the door, swinging it open. Camellia, come on. Camellia reached out, but then stopped. She shook her head, tears now streaking her cheeks like frozen streams. I cannot. Have you tried? Camellia stared steadily at Bee, understanding her resolve. Trust me. Camellia reached out, their fingers just brushing before something flung Bee out, slamming the door shut behind her. Bee was shot out and landed in a pile of slush snow, knocking the breath from her. Dazed, disoriented, and panicked, she hoisted herself to her knees and found herself at the rest stop. Bee scrambled to her feet, recognizing the trail she had begun only days before. The rest stop, which had been covered in a blanket of snow when her journey began, was now slick with melted snow, and clearly man-made. Benches and little signs that had been hidden beneath the snow were now clearly visible. No. No, 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 no. Bee's thoughts raced. This magic is really starting to get to me. Her body ached, days of sleeping on a small lumpy couch, and the stress of being in the unknown made her temper short and her mind clouded. It may have been several days of high stress and strange companionship, but she wasn't going to let Camellia stay caged. And she sure as hell wasn't going to go back to living her everyday life when she knew Camellia was suffering in her own way. Ah, that's it. I'm going back. To the force, Camellia's coming with me. I am freeing her. With that yell of invigoration, Bee ran back into the half-melted forest beyond the rest stop barrier. Pine needles whipped past her cheeks as she dodged roots and slick, uneven ground. She turned left, then right, then left again, running deeper into the forest and attempting to retrace her steps. But it was impossible. She ran herself into the ground. She fell to her knees, wheezing. Frustration was starting to ebb, and the compound fatigue was starting to hit her oxygen-deprived body. Her chest ached and her legs wobbled, and she attempted to stand back up. Balancing herself against a tree, she took an uneasy step forward, then another. Her foot sank. Her feet slipped on loose, wet soil, and she tumbled down a short hill, rolling, and finally hitting the bottom hard. Gasping for air and trying to get her bearings, she turned onto her side. Pain racked her hips and shoulders. She was soaked from the snow slush and couldn't tell if she was bleeding or not. She took 2 more calming breaths before shakily returning to her feet. Bee screwed her face in pain but bit her lip and marched forward. I'm not someone you can just push around here. I'm not leaving till I get back to that cabin. Despite the pain, Bee pushed forward. This path was definitely familiar, reminding her of where she first saw Camellia, ethereal, bright, and beautiful. Bee realized that the cabin must be close then. She crested a small slope and saw it, a small clearing up ahead. She ran. Her body screamed, but she ran. Her legs were numb. It felt like she was running in quicksand. The harder she tried to run, the slower and slower she ran. I like the brushstroke streaks in the CG. It's like running a pen over a paintbrush over. I like it. But she ran. Bee tried to call out to Camellia, but she barely made a noise, a fish out of water, gasping for air. Oh, there's the cabin. The cabin materialized through the trees, and Bee collapsed at the base of the stairs. Camellia! Bee was able to gasp out finally. Catching her breath in a moment, Bee half-crawled the stairs of the cabin, craning her head to see Camellia inside. But it was empty. The cabin door hung ajar, sunlight streaming into the dark interior, illuminating its emptiness. Camellia? Bee stepped inside, panic edging into her voice. Camellia? Bee searching the whole cabin with increasing agitation. Camellia? Camellia! Please. Why? The end of her questions hung in the stillness of the cabin air. Dust motes laced the silent responses. Bee suddenly froze. Sitting in a pool of sunshine, a heart-shaped pendant lay, lightly frosted with ice. Bee hesitantly touched it. It was cold. So cold. Bee picked it up and held it to her chest. Bee walked slowly to the top of the cabin stairs and cried. This wasn't how this was supposed to be. I was supposed to show you the whole world and explore the cities with you. We were supposed to have a happily ever after. These words came out in broken sobs. Her body felt destroyed, broken, and incredibly drained. She sat down, warming her face in the new spring sun and letting her tears flow unchecked. The spring is beautiful, isn't it, Camellia? Developed for the Winter Jam 2020. And that is the end of Yearning for Spring. I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it as well. That ending was so good. Like it was so sad, but it really you felt it. You know. Exactly, Chase Cube. Cinematics time. I know, Cryo. I was really sad. I wanted them to get together. Yeah, the emotion definitely came through. Maybe they do find each other later on, or either way, them meeting each other has changed them for the better. You know. Yeah, exactly, Axel. You can't weave fate though, because they've met. So now they have this bond. Oh, she's feeling bittersweet when she sees a snowflake. Winter coming every year, it must affect her. It must remind her of Camellia. And the snowflake landed on her cheek. I just noticed. Yes! And that was Yearning for Spring. I recommend playing through this yourself as well. You can find this on chasecubed.itch.io. Great work. That was so good. Thank you for making it. Oh, gallery. Oh, these backgrounds we saw during the game. Oh, character sprites as well. Now wait a minute. Wait a minute. One's unlocked, but we played through everything, which means I deduce that if you play it again, you will see other things. So go play it and find out what that lock is for. Oh, Axel says I intend to, specifically because I only got parts of it. Yeah, I played the first half earlier, about 2 days ago, and even now there's still some parts of the story that we may have not found. So go play it. With that, I think I'll end the stream now. I will have us raid someone. So let me just go to the page and see who we can raid, who is live. Let's see. Oh, Brian DeChart is currently live. He's playing Gris, which is a very beautiful hand-drawn platformer game, so we're going to raid his channel. Okay, so we're going to raid the chart games, and I'll see you there. Ta-ra!